good weekend.
What?
Welcome home, Sydney. Preview of coming events.
Why don't you come for me? You got the balls for that?
Oh, poor Sydney. You think this is all about you? You think you're still the star?
These are innocent people.
Spare me the lecture. You've done very well by all this bloodshed, haven't you? Well, how about the town you left behind? I've got plans for you. I'm gonna slit your eyelids in half so you don't blink when I stab you in the face. You'll die when I want you to, Sydney. Not a moment before. Until then, you're going to suffer. What's your favorite scary movie? You're a survivor, aren't you, Sydney? What good's it to be a survivor if everyone close to you is dead? You can't save them. All you can do is watch.
These aren't just random killings.
There's something really scary about a guy with a knife who just snaps.
Hi, this is Russell Todd from Chopping Mall, He Knows You're Alone, and Friday the 13th Part 2, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues. I think it's episode 251, and we are heading back to Woodsboro for Scream 4, just on the eve of the release of Scream 5. I thought we'd go back and cover this one, this was 2011, wasn't it? So it's kind of almost just over 10 years old. I think I'm right in thinking. So, so we're heading back to Woodsboro for our main pick. We don't have Nathan with us today, unfortunately. I think he may have lost power because of some storms. So he's asked us to press ahead, so he will be back with us next time. So, unfortunately, it's just a gruesome threesome, or the lovely threesome. Which would it be, Erik? Are we lovely or gruesome?
Well, I'm lovely, but...
You dirty nun fucker.
That says it all about you.
Oh, Erik. Yes, that is true. As you know, I have watched that movie. I think we talked about it last time, didn't we?
Yes, what a classic.
Classic indeed. So, and Joseph, how are you doing? Is it still warm where you are for Christmas? Or this Christmas gone week?
The weather here has just been insane. Like, we had, yesterday it was like almost 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was thankfully very windy, but it was also very humid, and this is like during the middle of winter. And then we had some massive like rainstorms, thunderstorms, and even sketchier, possibly smaller tornadoes come through. And I think the temperatures are supposed to drop into the lower 20s tonight. So if you don't like the weather here, just wait 5 minutes.
It's kind of weird. It's a heat wave here at the moment. It's about 20. I don't know what how it translates into American terms, but it's about 25 degrees. So, but anyway, enough of the weather talk, because we will be talking about gale weathers.
By the way, I'm fine.
Oh, what a segue.
You're fine. Well, I'm glad to hear it. So,
and I'm fine as well.
I did ask.
No, but nobody... I had to spend Christmas alone and nobody cared.
Oh.
None of you cared.
Poor Erik.
And I'm an orphan. Nobody cared.
Oh, Erik. Santa didn't come down your chimney then?
No, but my sister did deliver my presents, so I got some Led Zeppelin records. QED, I am now straight.
You got some Led Zeppelin records?
Yep.
Did you ask for them?
I did ask for them because I do like Led Zeppelin.
Well, there's something I didn't realise, Erik, because I thought you only like sort of really nonsense like New Romantics.
There's nothing rubbish about New Romantics. Yeah, I like Led Zeppelin and I like
thankful you didn't say Toya.
Yeah, well, I have all of Toya's albums already.
Well, exactly. So, this was going to be Nathan's pick, so he's left us with Scream 4, and it's going to be interesting. This is my first view. Oh, no, it's quite the first view. I hadn't seen this I saw it at the cinema, and I haven't seen it for quite a few years, so I was interested to come back and look at it. But before we get on to the main pick, let's have a quick chat about what we've been watching recently. So, Erik, have you seen anything you'd like to tell us about?
Just some ones I've watched before. I had a double bill of mid to late 80s horror the other day that were video staples for me back in the day. One was Witchboard, the Kevin Tenney movie from 1986, which it's quite lightweight in terms of being a horror film, but it's very fun and it's very 80s because it's got Tawny Kitaen who's this massive head of 80s hair, dyed red, and it's just amazing. She stepped straight out of the set of Dynasty or something with hair like that. In terms of gore and body count, it's quite low. I think there's only sort of 3 deaths in the film, but they're well staged, and the film is great fun, as I said, if a bit slight, I suppose. But I mean, it's got good characters, and as I said, it is very much stuck in the 80s. So I really enjoyed watching that again. And I watched The Kindred. Now, this is the 3rd film by the collaborators Jeff Obro and Stephen Carpenter, who of course brought us the wonderful Storm That Dripped Blood, that then went on to make The Power, and this is their 3rd film, and they've upgraded to feature stars like Rod Steiger and Kim Hunter in this, and this was what I watched many times back in the day. Now, I haven't seen it in about 30 years, so there was very little of it I remembered. All I remembered was I enjoyed it back in the 80s, and I can see why I'm watching it again, because it was great fun. It's a creature feature about genetic experiments gone wrong, so it has kind of an element of what was to come in things like Species and Splice, but it's done in a very trashy 80s way with lots of latex effects, a rubbery monster that's not too bad considering the budget they're working with, and lots of goo and melting, and they probably used more KY jelly on this than Justin does on a Saturday night, I reckon.
I can tell you've had that one stored up.
I did, yeah. But it's great fun. I mean, it's classic late 80s monster movie fare. Like with Witchboard, this one's very stuck in the 80s as well. It's with the mullets and, big backcombed hairstyles and that. But great fun, good special effects that hold up quite well, I would say. And there's a sort of meltdown thing that was very popular in the 80s. If you think things like The Blob and that type of effect. So yeah, I really enjoyed watching that one as well. So there are 2 of my films from my youth I hadn't seen in a while that I really enjoyed revisiting. But apart from that, I watched A View to a Kill, which is one of my favourite Bond movies, and Bond aficionados think it's one of the worst Bond movies, but I love it because it's got Grace Jones in it, and she is awesome.
Did you also watch Flesh for Frankenstein as well?
Oh, yes. I probably didn't speak about that. Yes, I got the Vinegar Syndrome Flesh for Frankenstein Blu-ray, which has a 3D version on it, which is incredible. Because even when there isn't an obvious 3D effect, like if it's just somebody's head speaking, the head is kind of coming off the screen. It's really, really impressive, the 3D on it. And of course, it's a great movie as well. It's we did this on the Patreon feed last year or the year before, and I think we all agreed it's a pretty interesting little film. But if you're an enthusiast of 3D, then I'd say definitely seek this one out because the presentation is top notch.
I would agree. We watched it on... Did you watch it on your projector?
Yes.
We watched it on the projector as well. Actually, for New Year's Eve, we watched it. Had some friends around, and we got 4 3D glasses. So because it comes in the blue red or the proper 3D, and the 3D at the beginning with the titles is a bit headache inducing.
It is, because they're kind of panning across scientific equipment, and there's lots of vertical lines and horizontal lines crossing each other, and it does affect your eyes. But once they're out of the way, it's perfect. It's actually it's a shame Nathan's not here to talk about it, because this is the kind of 3D he loves, where things were, especially if you've seen the movie, or if you haven't seen the movie, I won't give away what happens, apart from there is a scene where somebody's impaled on a big long spike with their liver hanging off the end. And it actually, unlike modern 3D where everything is about depth and it's all being post-converted or whatever, this actually looks like the kind of spike is coming out of the screen. So it's how I remember 3D when I was a kid, when I went to see Jaws 3D and Amityville 3D and things like that, the cinema way back when, and how the 3D actually felt like you could reach up and touch it. But it is a fantastic print. It looks great. The film is so much fun. I prefer it to Blood for Dracula, but Blood for Dracula is still a pretty good movie. But Flesh for Frankenstein is so bonkers. And if you've ever been put off by the Andy Warhol thing, it's not really an Andy Warhol movie in so much he put his name to it. But it's very campy, over the top, ridiculous and fun and gory. I mean, incredibly gory for a film from the mid-70s. But also, Witchboard, I'm trying to remember, I'm sure I saw Witchboard back in the 80s. And did you say it was Retribution? No, what was it, the other one? No, The Kindred.
Kindred, of course, yeah. Because Retribution was another one, wasn't it? With what's his name in it? The lead actor.
Rod Steiger?
Yes, I'm pretty sure there was a film. But anyway, The Kindred was a bit of a favourite of mine back in the day as well. So
Rod Steiger's in The Illustrated Man, and he's all nude in it.
Well, there you go. So, anything else, Eric? Oh. Well, let's move on to quickly. Joseph, how about you?
Well, I did my usual Christmas marathon. I'm reaching the end of Dexter New Blood, and I binge watched the entire 4th season of Cobra Kai in less than a day. But horror-wise, it's been kind of quiet lately. I think I'm just on the holdout for Scream 5 unless I see something that catches my eye, which honestly I haven't lately. So I have nothing.
Oh, well, fair enough. It's always good to take a break, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, and plus the holidays have absolutely destroyed me, so.
Okay. Well, it's new. Well, we're speaking the day after New Year's Day, aren't we? So, yeah, we're coming through from the past. But anyway, Happy New Year to everyone, all of our listeners. And let's hope it's a better year for many of us going forward into 2022. Who knows? We said that last time. But...
yeah, and look how that turned out.
Yeah, Justin, you lied to us.
We've got plenty to look forward to. Lots of top picks coming, and including it's my pick next time. And it's a classic, you'll be pleased to hear. So, but as far as what I watched a couple of newer films. I think it was Gregory Burkett who said that he watched The Empty Man. So I kind of watched that. I was put off by the running time, which is like 2 hours, 20 minutes or something, which seems unfeasibly long for a horror movie. But I kind of really liked it. It's a real slow burn. Stuart was asleep within half an hour. It's one of the slowest burn movies. It kind of reminds me, I'm trying to think of It Follows. It had that same, nothing like it, but it had that kind of same kind of languid pace.
Does it have a girl eating a sandwich really slowly?
No, but it had sort of similar. Well, it's a strange movie in so much you think it's going to be like kind of like The Boogeyman or something like the more recent one, or those kind of, what was the one with Faye Dunaway, not Nightmare Man. It was one of those I can't remember, but those ones where you think it's going to be like a kind of boo jump scare movie. In fact, it's more like a kind of Cronenbergian kind of film, that kind of slow pace, and it's about, without giving too much away, essentially it's about a cult, like a sort of mystic cult that worships the Empty Man, and you have all these kind of teenagers slightly shoehorned in who are kind of conjuring up the Empty Man, and there's like the pre-credit sequence lasts for half an hour, so it's very languid, but there's some really, really creepy bits in it. And Gregory was on the money there's a scene with the cult in the woods, which is very, very creepy and very well done. So I quite liked it. If you've got the patience for it, then it's a film that I think is well worth looking at. So did either of you guys ever catch that?
No.
Thank you, Nathan, by proxy.
I want to. It sounds good, but that runtime, I don't know if I have the time or patience for that right now.
I actually broke it into 3 parts. I watched it over in 3 nights. So that seems to be the way to do it. But the other film I saw was another new film, was Antlers, which is a similarly, it's not as kind of odd, I kind of guess is not the right word, but it's kind of set in somewhere in Ohio, I think, rural Ohio, which is very kind of down on its luck. It seems, sometimes you get a film and you're thinking, is it set in the past or not? And it has that kind of weird, again, like It Follows, it feels like it's set in the past, but then you've got things like mobile phones and stuff in it. So, but it's about the it was essentially, I think it's some kind of Indian spirit, I can guess, has come back to wreak revenge on humans for destroying the environment, essentially. But it's a much smaller scale film. It's not like a big budget bonanza, but it's very beautifully shot and very well done. And it has essentially a young boy whose father and brother have been infected by this thing, and he's trying to keep them safe. It turns into more of like a creature feature, I can guess, at the end of it. But the special effects are fantastic. The monster is pretty creepy as well. That was kind of recommend from me. It's more of a straight ahead horror movie, I can guess, than The Empty Man. But yeah, I take it neither of you seen Antlers.
What's the runtime on that?
Off the top, I would guess it's 1 hour 39 minutes. but that's just a guess.
Is that a guess? Because you're looking at. That's what you do with the quizzes, Eric, isn't it?
Because
How dare you?
because
How
I
dare
love
you?
because I love a good monster movie, and if it's like like a good 90-minute movie, I'll check it out.
Yeah, 1 hour 39. Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, so I think it's worth a watch. It's very well done. It's beautifully shot, and it's got some kind of creepy elements, and it turns into more of a creature feature towards the end of the movie. But yeah, so I kind of guess without Nathan here, that is our recently seen. So what do we have? Do we have a trailer, a TV spot for Scream 4, Joseph?
We have a TV spot for Scream 4.
Okay, right. Well, Eric will pull us off after this.
Critics call Scream 4 the best one since the original. Haunting.
She said you were the angel of death.
Terrifying.
You can't save them.
And scary as hell. Scream 4.
Directed by suspense master and director of the first trilogy, Wes Craven, Scream 4 is the newest installment in the acclaimed franchise that ushered in a new wave of horror in the 1990s. In Scream 4, Sidney Prescott, now the author of a self-help book, returns home to Woodsboro on the last stop of her book tour. There she reconnects with Sheriff Dewey and Gail, who are now married, as well as her cousin Jill. Unfortunately, Sidney's appearance also brings about the return of Ghostface, putting Sidney, Gail and Dewey, along with Jill, her friends, and the whole town of Woodsboro in danger. Okay, so I'm the party pooper when it comes to the Scream franchise, in that I like them, but I don't love any of them. I don't really tend to revisit Scream. I would go back and watch its knockoffs more, like the Last Summer movies and Urban Legend. So I saw Scream 4 when it opened in cinemas back in April of 2011, when our little podcast was only a few months old. That's how long ago this was. And my memories were walking out of the cinema thinking that was really run-of-the-mill. It was just more of the same. I don't think I'll ever watch that ever again. Now, we've recovered it for the podcast. Unfortunately for me, it appeared on Netflix here in Ireland yesterday, so I got a chance to revisit it. And I actually was quite surprised to find myself really enjoying Scream 4. For starters, I remember the double bluff opening sequence, and I remember really liking that part of the film. I couldn't really remember much else about it, but I remember the Stab 6/Stab 7 opening, which I think is really clever, and I think it's great fun. And after that opening, the film does fall into the usual Scream tropes. There's a pre-credits murder of two girls who are at home watching a scary movie, and then we're reintroduced to Sidney, Dewey, and Gail. I'm not sure I guessed the killer back in the day. In retrospect, the clues are there. I could remember who the killer was when I was rewatching this yesterday, and the clues are there. I think it's probably more obvious than maybe some of the other Scream films, but I still think it doesn't detract from the film at all. One of the red herrings in the film is the literary agent, who was very like Mrs. Loomis from Scream 2, I thought, but I was thinking that she's definitely not. They're pushing her too far into the center to make her a suspect that she's definitely not going to be one. I loved all the pop culture references in the film. Even in the dialogue, yes, but in the background you've got they're watching Shaun of the Dead on the television. Robert Rodriguez is credited as the director of the first Stab movie when they're watching that, the Stabathon, and then just the myriad of horror posters in the film club, which has Hills of Eyes and a few other in-jokes. I think there's a People Under the Stairs poster as well, although shockingly they did have a very large poster for Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, so I would have had issues with that film club if I was going to that high school. The scene in the barn is pretty well staged, as poor old Gail Weathers stalks through the sort of hay bales. It's pretty tense and brought to mind similar scenes in like Friday the 13th Part 3 or Halloween 5. If I'm going to nitpick, I still have issues with the character of Ghostface. I just don't find him terribly interesting or frightening. I think the mask is a little bit too goofy to evoke any sense of dread. And the phone calls with a disguised voice I find kind of smug and annoying. I don't like the way the killer taunts their victims. I don't know, it just grates on me a bit. And the kills are all of the same formula. It's just phone call, Ghostface jumps out, stab, stab, stab. I would love some Friday the 13th style inventive murders injected into the Scream franchise. I think that would perk things up a bit for me. But the actual murders do pack a punch. I mean, they're quite vicious, and they have a more realistic edge than, like, you know, Jason pushing someone's face through the side of a camper van. But you know, inventive and far-fetched kills. I think they'd suit the tone of Scream, and you know, they'd make that portion of the film a bit more interesting. In terms of the returning characters, I still love Gale Weathers. I think she's my favourite. Dewey has thankfully evolved to be a little less meek, but Sydney she's still kind of this downbeat presence, and she's kind of in the background for a lot of the film. I mean, she does come to life at the end and all three are reunited in that hospital scene, but for the bulk of the film, she's kind of sort of lingering in the background in a almost Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween Kills kind of way. But she does become much more proactive than Jamie Lee did in that film. In terms of the new characters, I loved Kirby. I thought she was really likable and definitely didn't deserve the outcome that happened. I liked that the dialogue wasn't too hip and forced this time around. I mean, there's lots of pop culture references and the characters are articulate, but not in that really distracting way they were in the first two movies in particular. And when the villain is revealed, I was quite happy with the direction they took, and I thought the final 30 minutes were really impressive and really quite exciting, and then the coda at the end in the hospital was really good as well. I liked the motivation for the killer, which, I don't know, it may have seemed ludicrous in 2011, but it's completely believable in 2022. You know, spoiler alert, possibly, I'm sure everyone has seen Scream 4, but the killer's motive is just to seek internet fame. You know, they're one of these teens who does anything they can for likes and retweets or whatever. And they have a fantastic line where they say to, I think to Gail, they say, "I don't need friends, I need fans." And I thought it's a very blunt satire, but possibly ahead of its time as well. You know, we're living in a world of influencers and people who do internet stunts, you know, often pretty dangerous ones. You know, you think of these people who want to take a selfie on top of a tall building and they take one step back too much and then plummet to their death. Yeah, so, I mean, Scream 4, rewatching it, this was the first time I've seen it since the cinema in April 2011, so it's, you know, almost 11 years. I was really entertained by it. I think it's a pretty fine movie and a good conclusion to the career of Wes Craven. I mean, there's no shame in bowing out with Scream 4. I thought it was much better than Scream 3. You know, I had no real interest in Scream 5, the upcoming movie. But after watching Scream 4 and enjoying it for the most part, I think I can finally look forward to part 5 now. So, I think the general consensus on reading reviews is that Scream 4 was the weakest of the films, but I think it's one of the strongest, which is probably going to go against everything you guys are about to say. So, Justin, you also had not seen this in 11 years, so what did you think?
Yeah, I saw it at the cinema, and I remember liking it, but not being blown away. And I've got the Blu-ray, so I must have watched it since. And again, I don't remember being sort of blown away. So I watched it this time, and it'd been a long time. So my palate had been cleared for Scream movies. I hadn't seen any of them for a while. So I've, if I'm honest, I've kind of mixed feelings about the movie. I kind of enjoyed it. But it feels, and I agree, it's better than part 3. What I did like about it is the cuteness factor that you start getting in Scream 3, where you kind of like, it was like, oh, the audience loves these characters, so nothing's going to happen to them, and it became a bit cartoonish. And you saw that going in Scream 2, but certainly by Scream 3, it was very much like that. In this, you still kind of got the impression that they weren't going to be killing off Sydney or Gail or Dewey, but it felt more. It was a more brutal movie than I think of any of the others. The kills wise, I mean, the fact you had like one kill where the woman, she's literally gutted, isn't she? She's got all her, you know, when sort of Sydney goes up to her room and finds her and all the entrails are sort of pulled out. And it just goes to show how different the times we're living in. I mean, the Blu-ray I've got is like an uncut 15, UK 15 Blu-ray, but you've got people being stabbed, throats slit, being gutted. You know, I've got no argument with that, obviously, because I'm a slasher movie fan, but it surprised me, actually. I forgot how brutal the movie was. And Wes Craven is, you know, he could do that. I mean, he certainly did it. I mean, it's probably the disemboweling is probably a nod to Last House on the Left, I imagine. So I say I had mixed feelings in so much that for me, it's a film that I don't really feel that I need to rewatch very often. I think for the first two movies that I can watch them not endlessly, but they because they're very much kind of attuned to the original idea, which was a love letter to early 80s slasher movies, which Scream 3 had lost its way. And then Scream 4, you know, has basically lost that, really, and it's more self-referential about itself, about the Scream series, than it is really about other horror movies. And the other stuff with the, you know, Last House, the Hills of Eyes posters and all those kind of things just felt a bit sort of like it didn't really ring true. And you had these, you know, you had these characters, like you have these kind of like what is kind of really three set pieces towards the end of the movie, which all of them have got merit. I mean, the barn with where they're showing the stab movies, Marathon, and Gail tries to trap the killer, you know, is very well done. And then you have the kind of the party, well, kind of not really party scene, but like a scene where all the characters get invited by the killer to meet up. And then it turns into a massacre. For me, it's kind of, I was thinking, well, why is no one hearing any of this? Because surely that house, they were across, weren't they, from the house where it happens is a residential house. And it was almost as bad as in Halloween Kills when what's her name, little Lindsay Wallace, or Big Lindsay Wallace now, sort of runs away from all the houses. No one twitched their curtains, even though there's people running around being stabbed and shot, and shots and explosions and stuff. Obviously, you have to suspend disbelief. And I thought the hospital sequence at the end, it reminds me, what's the other film that they did? They had the film, the post-Scream film, where they had like the hospital scene at the end, the Black Christmas remake. It felt almost like they were borrowing from that. And so they all work in isolation. It just, I don't know. For me, it felt like a bit of a case of diminishing returns. So I kind of, once I realised, I remembered who the killers were. I don't know. I'm looking forward to Scream 5 because I have fun with them, and if I get a chance to see it in the cinema, I will. But I don't know. I know we're getting some background. The film isn't the film that Wes Craven wanted to make, and it certainly was tinkered with and changed to some degree. So, and we'll talk about it when we get some background. But yeah, overall, I hands on heart, I didn't feel it this time, you know. So, but you know, it's still a polished slasher movie with lots of fun bits to it. But you know, overall, yeah, I'm just going to be a bit of the meh.
Ooh, Joseph, which side do you fall on?
You know, I am so glad you picked Justin to go after you, because I don't think I could have gone after you because you were so cheery.
Oh, you hate it.
Yeah, I really tried with Scream 4, and I'll admit there are some scenes here that satisfy in some way, but I just found the overall tone of this film to be, I mean, it's overly smug and self-important, and that's really reflected with the characters, more so from the teen cast and the peripherals to the legacy characters, and they all just sort of lecture, or if they're not lecturing, they're engaging in some really lame jokes that feel really forced. And when they are lecturing, it's usually with this base knowledge of something, you know, well known, and it's told in all this like word salad to appear clever. And sometimes they're just wrong. Like the peeping Tom gag near the end, I will argue is wrong. I mean, it may have arguably lent itself to what the slasher film will become, but the slasher craze, quote unquote, was started with Friday the 13th. So fucking fight me on that. I know I'm being nitpicky, but still, the legacy cast, they don't really help matters either. I mean, Neve Campbell looks absolutely bored out of her mind. Courtney Cox looks like she probably should have kept the bandages on a couple more days. Sorry, Courtney. I kid. I know you're listening, and just call me, okay? Anyway, David Arquette is the only one who seems sincere, but I don't think he gets much to do here except drive around in his car. Scenes I liked. I appreciated the barn sequences and thought there was some really solid potential there for like an escalation to the body count. Instead, we get a main character in semi-danger again while a potential massacre just goes on ignored. I mean, I did actually love the overall vibe of the stab party with the reenactments and the raucous crowd of people reacting accordingly to what's going on in the stab films. But they don't really mind this for all it's worth. But on a visual standpoint, it's a lot of fun to watch if I'm honest. I'm sitting here after just rewatching this film, and I'm drawing a blank on anything else that I liked in this movie. I thought the opening scene was really overdone to the point of just absurdity. The attack scene seemed kind of scattershot and really unfocused. And the ending reveal of the killer and what happens next elicited a lot of laughs from me. And then I don't know if that was necessarily what they were going for. For me, this movie really resembles Scream 2. I mean, you've got the exact same motive with the reveal in Scream 2 where the killer is seeking fame. And they're doing it again here. And it's just, in that film, you kind of like the characters. And here I didn't really like the characters. So for me, I mean, Scream 4 just doesn't work, I'm afraid. It revels in some truth at times, about this generation of teenagers. I'll give it that. But as a slasher film, I just don't think it works all that well. And I didn't connect with a single character, even Kirby. Sorry.
Wow. Well, this is a turn up for the books. Me liking a Scream film and you two not. I'm sure Nathan probably likes Scream 4.
I don't know why. Maybe, I mean, sometimes you can watch a film and you're just not in the mood for it. And I'm just wondering if I wasn't quite in the mood for when I rewatched it. I don't know.
What did you think? What did you think of the opening sequence with Stab 6 and Stab 7? Did you like that, or did you find it grating?
I liked it, but it kind of, it was a bit different in so much that they were doing that kind of like, it was almost like a Russian doll, wasn't it? Where you kind of, I thought that was probably one of the more inventive parts of the movie. And I agree. I think the idea actually with like the, back in 2011, the idea of this, what was she anyway? Was she a niece or was she Emma Roberts' character?
Yeah, she was the cousin. She was the cousin of Sydney.
Because it's kind of, she must have, the idea that she and the other killer had hatched this just on the off chance of just, when Sydney was going to come back. It's kind of, I mean, the thing is, it's kind of like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love a ridiculous ending for a slasher movie because of course, you want the killer to be ranting and nutty and.
Sorry, Justin. I was going to say, what if Sydney never came back? Then none of this would have ever happened.
I don't know. I think because at the time, I remember when the film came out and it wasn't a massive success. It kind of killed the franchise off at that time. And it felt like, because I remember thinking, I really want the film to do good because if it does good, then we might get some more Scream movies and more slasher movies at the cinema. But I can remember it felt either the film was too early for that revival of the Scream series or too late to capitalize on the last film, because it was Scream 3 was 2000, wasn't it? I think.
Yes, and you're sitting here talking the way you're describing this. It kind of reminds me of the 80s slasher cycle going into the 90s, because the 80s slasher cycle started off really strong and then it kind of petered out by the end of the 90s, and then Scream reawoke everything, and by the time we get to Scream 4 it just feels like the end of the 80s again, and then when you get the Halloween reboots that's kind of revamp the whole slasher thing again. So maybe we're on the upward tick with Scream 5.
I would hope so. I mean, my understanding, I mean, I don't know. They haven't really leaked much in the way of what the plot of Scream 5. So we've got no advanced knowledge. So whatever we say, don't take as a spoiler because we don't know. I mean, the only things I've seen is that kind of that metal, the gold mask, the Scream mask in gold.
Yeah, and he's using a flamethrower. It's different. It's different than a knife.
Did I read somewhere, and I don't know if it was an idea originally, possibly even if it was the idea for Scream 5, if Scream 4 had been more successful, that there was going to be a cult of serial killers or a cult worshipping serial killers.
Yeah, from my knowledge, the original draft of Scream 3 was supposed to be Stu in jail, and he had organized like a cult following who would go after Sidney Prescott, and that idea got nixed, and Kevin Williamson used it for the following, wasn't it?
That's probably, yes, I think you're right. So I kind of, whether or not they're going to do this, because my understanding is that obviously Wes Craven's not involved with it because he's sadly no longer with us, but Kevin Williamson, when I looked, he hasn't written it. It's just characters based on, by Kevin Williamson. So I don't know what input he has in this at all. So I'd be interested to see what they do with it. For me, Scream 4 just felt, I don't know. It was too much or not enough. I can't really put my finger on it. It felt like there was, these characters like Neve Campbell, again, she's how can I put it kindly? I like her in the first Scream and Scream 2, but everything after that, she does feel like I'm here because they're paying me lots of money, and I don't really want to do this, but I'll do it anyway because why not get a paycheck,
And there's a difference with her with Jamie Lee Curtis. With Jamie Lee Curtis, she, for the most part, looks like she's game, whereas I don't think Neve Campbell really does.
No, and I think it's kind of we've never had Sydney actually like kind of happy.
Right.
She's never actually we've never seen her happy in her life. She's always either been suffering some post-traumatic stress disorder or something. I mean, she's doing like, I'm just looking her up now. I mean, she's in post-production on the Lincoln Lawyer TV series. But she hasn't. I mean, she's acted consistently. I kind of guess the last few years, like one film a year. I mean, she didn't do anything in 2021. Sorry. So I don't know. I mean, all power to her. To be honest, if I was in her position and or if Erik was a final girl that everyone loved, which I know how unlikely that would be. So I don't know. I wanted to like it more. It felt like not everything's on autopilot because, some of the characters in it, I thought, like Kirby was really good. It's the Hayden Panettiere. It was, she was the best character in it. But it's sad to see that she's not back for the sequel because I know at the time, after Scream 4, people were going, "Oh, we didn't see Kirby die. I hope she's back for the film." But maybe they would have brought her back. But I don't think the actress is doing much at the moment. I don't think she's acting in much. So that may have been the reason why they haven't done it. Because I know that they're bringing back Marley Shelton as Judy Hicks is coming back for the part 5 as Dewey's deputy.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because I just barely remember her in this film. So it's like, okay.
Well, I suppose it's some consistency, isn't it? Again, if you've got a film where pretty much everyone dies, it's kind of difficult, isn't it, to bring back these kind of characters? But I mean, what the advanced publicity for Scream 5 seems to be doing is trying to hint that one of the main 3 characters is behind all of this. Because isn't the tagline something? It's always someone you know.
But that also could be alluding to that whole theory going around. This is not a spoiler; it's just a theory that they're using the Stu angle with him behind bars that he survived. So it could be that.
Right. Okay. Well, it could well be. I mean, I know Joseph, you'll probably get a chance to see this before we record next. So it'd be interesting to see, what your take on it is, and if we can all get a chance to watch it, we may dedicate a whole episode to it, like we've done some of the modern movies. But as is, it's unlikely we're all going to get to see it before the next episode.
And here's the thing: I've seen all the Scream films in the theater, and I don't plan to break that tradition. So this will be the first film I've seen in a long time at the cinemas. But I do plan to go see it for the show, so we can talk about it somewhat. I'm really looking forward to it overall. I mean, they've released a couple of like TV spots and teasers, and they're phenomenal looking. Like the deaths look more vamped up. Ghostface is using different methods. He doesn't seem as kind of jokey with his calls. He seems just like, hey, I'm here to kill. That's it. I think this is really shaping up. It looks like it's going to be good. So I'm hoping they just keep that, I'm hoping the momentum pays off. I'm really looking forward to this, actually.
Cool. Excellent. Okay. Well, should we talk a bit about some backgrounds? Do you have any, Erik?
Yeah, I didn't do a huge amount of background on this one, but I have some. Okay. So, yeah, apparently Kevin Williamson pitched an idea of a new trilogy. And I got the impression that this meant wiping the slate clean and bringing back no returning characters, but I've no confirmation on that. That's just what I read into what I was reading. So he wanted to do a Scream 4, 5, and 6, pitched that to Bob Weinstein, who turned it down, decided to just go with Scream 4 for the moment. The original opening sequence was supposed to be this 15-minute battle between Sidney and a new killer. It would have taken place, at a party celebrating Sidney's completion of her new book, and Ghostface was to have attacked her, and it would have involved Sidney being stabbed multiple times, but eventually getting the better of her assailant. And then the film was going to flash forward 2 years. I think the opening they've gone with in the theatrical version is much more fun. I still stand by that stab 6, stab 7 opening. I think it's really fun.
I'm sorry, Erik. Sorry, Erik. The way you described that, it sounds almost like a copycat scenario where she survives like a copycat and then she becomes like a kind of agoraphobic. It sounds like it's leading into that, and I thought that would have been interesting.
No, not for me. I prefer the opening that went with the goofy opening. I have a feeling that Scream 4 is a view to a kill of the Scream franchise, and I'm always attracted to the rubbish sequels for some reason. So maybe this is why I have an affinity to Scream 4. I didn't realize this, but the stab footage from the first Scream is actually directed by Robert Rodriguez. We probably discussed that when we did Scream, but I'd completely forgotten it if we did. So so when they're watching Stab at the Stabathon and the words a Robert Rodriguez film comes up on screen, it is actually him. I don't think does his name come up on screen in the first, and then Scream 2?
Yeah, in Scream 2 it says a Robert Rodriguez film.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah,
well,
when it says like in Stabovision, then it says a Robert Rodriguez film, or it could be before it. Yeah, it does.
I'd completely missed that fact then. Sorry, because when I saw it on Scream 4, I thought, "Ooh, that's new," but no, obviously it's not. But he'd also made, at this point, he'd done Grindhouse with Marley Shelton, who's in this film, and she was a key part of Planet Terror, and also had a cameo in Death Proof as well. So what else? Yeah, the film opened in US theaters on April the 15th, 2011, which apparently is exactly 15 years to the date after Scream 1 began filming. So there you go. And this is the first time in the franchise that CGI was used. Apparently CGI blades were used for the knives because Wes Craven wanted to avoid using prop knives that were rubber or cardboard or retractable. Now we're getting on to, I found lots and lots of really stupid trivia about Scream 4 on IMDb in the trivia section. So I'm going to give you some of those. First of all, make what you will of this sentence, the syntax of this. Emma Roberts' first horror film debut.
It's kind of redundant. Emma Roberts'
first horror. Yeah, yes. The only film in the franchise in which no male character is featured in the opening scene. Ooh. As of 2011, it's the only Scream film where neither one of the killers is shot in the head. There you go. This film and Scream from 1996, this is spooky. They have the same running time, 1 hour and 51 minutes.
Just one quick thing. How are they going to bring Stu back? Not Stu, Skeet Ulrich's character, if he got shot in the head in the first movie.
Was he supposed to come back for Scream 4?
5, wasn't it? We were talking about Scream 5. If you're sort of saying that he was going to be...
No. It was Matt Lillard, the Stu character.
Oh, Stu, sorry. Okay, yeah, okay.
Now, there's rumors that Skeet Ulrich has recorded some voiceover work for Scream 5 to overlay some like flashbacks or something. So that could be kind of cool.
But he could always be a twin brother, couldn't he? Because
yeah, no, that would be fun.
Yeah,
Urban Legends Final Cut. Yeah. Now this is really interesting, and I remember this being all over the news at the time. It was on the front page of every newspaper. But this movie has the shortest killers in the series because Emma Roberts is only 5'2" and Rory Culkin is 5'6".
It's so ridiculous. All this brutality, and it's these little shrimps doing all this. I'm like, yeah, right. Come on.
Now, Justin, I know you've mentioned this, I think, about 7 or 8 times in the past, but this is the first Scream movie not to feature a character called Stephen.
Have I said that?
You're always going on about that fact, yeah, you were.
It's his life's mantra.
Yeah. The official Scream 4 title card appears at around 11 minutes into the film. This could allude to the fact that this film was released 11 years after Scream 3. So there we go. That's all my interesting background.
Well, thank you, Erik. Joseph, how about you?
Yeah, a few little tidbits here. First, under casting call from a 2010 issue of The Hollywood Reporter, it says, franchise just won't die. Dimension is taking the first steps in casting Scream 4. Lake Bell is in negotiations to join the franchise, and offers are out to Ashley Greene, Hayden Panettiere, and Rory Culkin. So we know 2 of those names made it into the film. In a 2010 issue of Metro New out of Canada, they say Jennifer Aniston will do a cameo in Wes Craven's Scream 4, Star Magazine reports. I couldn't find the issue of Star Magazine, but they go on to say Aniston says she is doing the role after being asked by former Friends co-star Courtney Cox. I don't think that happened either, unless I missed her, but...
I didn't spot her either.
Yep, yeah, I don't know. But really, that's all I really cared to dig up on the film.
Okay, well, there seemed to be, from what I could dig up, I got a couple of short sort of paragraphs from reviews at the time, that apparently Wes Craven was 71 when he made the movie, and at the time he posted to Twitter that he didn't feel like the Scream 4 was his movie. Apparently told Total Film, to quote, "In some ways it's a Wes Craven film, and in some ways it's not, because it's not the script, not a script I have control of. It's ultimately controlled by what the studio wants. I signed up to a script by Kevin, and unfortunately it didn't go all the way through shooting." So I think is it Aaron Kruger they got to do the Scream 3, and apparently they kind of rewrote, got him back in to do rewrites on Kevin Williamson's script. So, which apparently annoyed Kevin Williamson, which isn't surprising. So there was obviously a difficulty behind the cameras. The Kevin Williamson apparently clashed with Bob Weinstein over this. So it obviously, and also the lack of box office success. I mean, I don't think it was terrible box office, but it certainly was less. It was the least profitable of all the Scream movies. Wes Craven at the time actually suggested, because he did My Soul to Take around the same time, I think that came out the year before, but he suggested that Scream 4 might be post-converted into 3D, because, there was a bit of vogue at the time, wasn't there, to release kind of films that had been post-converted, and so they could get the extra moolah from that. So but yeah, that obviously didn't happen for whatever reason. So the film itself currently, it has got a middling 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, but kind of contemporary reviews, the Herald in South Carolina led with Scream, that cutlery, cleavage and quips franchise returns sort of with Scream 4, another sachet down self-aware meta-movie lane with director Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson. It's fitfully amusing but not remotely scary slasher picture. Us Weekly said the entertaining Scream formula still works when there's a big shiny knife, the action never gets dull. The Reno Gazette Journal said Scream 4 disintegrates into a meta bubble. Ultimately, Scream 4 comes off as more self-satisfied than self-reflexive, which turns out to be less satisfying than you would hope. One bit of quip I quite thought was quite funny was when Courtney Cox, or Gail Weathers' character, says to Dewey's character about the things being meta, and he's saying, "What's that?" And she said, "I don't know. I just heard the kids saying it." So it still had some, clever dialogue. I mean, that's kind of sort of all I have really. Oh, apart from like apparently in the early draft of the script, Gail and Dewey were meant to have a baby, but they decided not to do that because they said it would make shooting impossible if they had to have a baby on set. So I'm not quite sure how they would have got around that with them pushing a pram with Ghostface chasing them. That might have been a bit strange.
Yeah, and the inclusion of a baby in a story like this feels like they would kind of mine that for suspense. And I always found that kind of tacky when they do that in movies, when they try to use kids or infants to kind of mine terror. I don't know, it just kind of bugs me.
No, fair enough. I mean, do you think the Scream, because I've got like the Blu-ray, the UK Blu-ray, which is they may have brought out a special edition, but it's particularly bare bones. I mean, it has nothing in the way of special features whatsoever. But I did see on IMDb that Wes Craven had the Scream 4 alternate opening. So whether or not there was what the alternate opening was. Any ideas?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
So it sounds like there must have been some kind of rewrites on this.
Unless they're referring to that one where it was, as I said, Sydney at the. I see it here on IMDb. There's Scream 4 alternate opening. I wonder if it's just a DVD extra where he's just explaining that they originally were going to have Sydney battling a Ghostface impersonator at the start of the film instead of the stab films.
Okay.
Possibly.
Could well be. I mean, I'd say the from what I was also reading, that is the original script was changed quite considerably. That I think the hospital finale scenes were added at a later date in the writing process, so they weren't originally there. They was given as an extra kind of something for the film. In the original script, it was meant to be that Jill was kind of loaded into an ambulance. And then a paramedic comes out and says they have a woman live, but not specifying whether it's Sydney or Kirby. And then it would have ended. The film would have ended on this cliffhanger without the hospital scene, which kind of was setting Jill up to be the killer. And I think there was some talk that possibly if there was a Scream 5 at that time, direct follow-up, it would be that Sydney would possibly be suffering from amnesia in the next film.
It's very Knots Landing.
Yeah. I wish they would have gone with this. Oh, what a missed opportunity.
Sydney would be going, I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting, as Jill's walking around with a big butcher knife. But, they didn't do that. But apparently Kevin Williamson was upset that the ending was changed and his script was changed. And but the Weinsteins were certainly known for their meddling ways, weren't they?
And the good thing about Scream 5 is that they don't have to deal with the Weinsteins. I mean, you don't have Wes Craven, unfortunately, but you do have this this promising creative team who did Ready or Not, which is a fantastic film if you haven't seen that. So I think there's life yet in this franchise.
I agree. It's going to be. I'm really looking forward to seeing Scream 5. I just thought Scream 4 was. I don't know. It just didn't. It kind of felt a bit. It fell flat for me a bit. But I say I do adore the first two movies, and I quite like the third one. And I do think Scream 4 is a better movie than the third one because the third one, it just felt like it was getting too cozy.
I don't know. I thought it was very Scooby-Doo, and that's why I liked it. It just felt like I Still Know What You Did last summer of the franchise.
Yeah, which is fair enough. I mean, I need to rewatch them at some point. I mean, we have covered them all on the podcast, but God knows, it's like Erik said, we've been going for over 10 years. So maybe we need a reboot.
Wow.
Who would you cast in our reboot?
Well, I did a mock-up poster a long time ago, and I know Benedict Cumberbatch was Justin.
Of course.
The Joss Whedon was Nathan. Sorry, that's kind of bad. Erik, I think I put the dude from The Hangover as you, Zach Galifianakis.
Oh, yes, please.
And I was Walton Goggins.
Who?
He's from Justified, The Shield. He's in tons of stuff. He was in House of 1,000 Corpses. Big name over here, at least.
Oh, I do. I've just Googled him. I recognized him, yeah.
So talking of corpses, we could always dig up Bob Hoskins as a fifth member. So,
well, I wouldn't object.
What, really?
Well, I'm that desperate.
Oh God, the jumping I've heard of jumping bones.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, you mentioned Scream 4 tanking at the box office, Justin. I'm just looking at on Box Office Mojo here. It debuted at number 2 the week it opened. It opened the same weekend as the animated film Rio, and it was kind of trounced. Rio made 39.2 million and Scream 4 made 18.6, and then it only went on to gross 38 million in the States, and at the end of the year it was the 83rd most successful film of the year at the US box office. The most successful horror film that year was actually Paranormal Activity 3, which had 104 million and was at number 26. So the big hitter that year was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Yeah, definitely the more supernatural, the more ghostly films were very popular at the time. The slasher film was kind of on the, not really even on the wane. It was just kind of on the back burner until now.
83rd most successful movie. You can see why they didn't rush a Scream 5 out.
It is interesting what would have become of that Scream 5 had it been successful.
I think it would have been. I don't know if it could have worked with Jill being, if you knew who she was a killer, it kind of, because they're all whodunits, aren't they? I don't know, but it's kind of interesting. I wonder what Kevin Williamson was, if he was planning a trilogy, what that would have looked like. So, but yeah. So anyway, that was Scream 4. What was the kind of consensus on the groups on this one, Joseph?
41 comments overall, which sort of feels appropriate considering the box office drop off between this and Scream 3. I expected a little more, but I'm not surprised that it's low. Anyway, Dane Damaged Dregan writes, Scream 4 is my favorite of the series. It makes good on the promises of a gory sequel, unlike 2 and 3, and with good grace for a later slasher entry, fits into its contemporary setting without a jarring stylistic shift. And Walter Beepus declares, easily the weakest of the current franchise. All the returning cast have plot armor by this point, so there's zero fear of them being in danger. The first half is dull, and the second half not much better. Neve Campbell looked so bored. The killer's reveal was trash. Disappointing. Follow, subscribe, Spotify, YouTube, Patreon, The Hysteria Continues, Gmail.
Well, there you go. Well, let's see if Erik's Joke of the Week will hit the spot.
It's my Joke of the Week. It's so great and fantastic.
What did Gail Weathers say to Justin when she saw him cruising under the pier at midnight? Hey, Justin, caught any cocks? Caught any cocks?
Oh, Erik.
You a hoe, Justin, you a hoe.
I'm just glad poor young Nathan's not here to be corrupted by your wicked humour.
Yes.
Oh, that was really, really good.
Thank you very much.
Really good. Oh my God, my sides are hurting. That was so good.
Thank you.
That was better than Scream 4. I'm serious.
Wow. Did you think it was better than Scream 4, Justin?
We do have some feedback, don't we, this time?
I have one here from our friend Rob Balducci, and he says, "Hi Justin, Erik, Joseph and Nathan. I just listened to your American Nightmare and Don't Go in the House episodes. American Nightmare's comparisons to Clute are blatantly obvious, especially the fish out of water, straight-laced lead character entering the seedy underbelly of prostitution and stripping. Laurie Staley's Louise was the highlight of the film, and I like how they made her a likeable character instead of a stereotype based on her chosen profession. Don't Go in the House was a gritty, sleazy masterpiece. I see comparisons to Maniac, Taxi Driver and Driller Killer frequently mentioned, but it actually reminded me a lot of the Ed Gein-inspired Deranged, though taken more seriously. I can't wait for the upcoming Severn Blu-ray that will include the long-lost TV cut of the film." Wow, I imagine a TV cut of Don't Go in the House would be quite tame, but interesting, I'm sure. "I really wish someone would release Joseph Ellison's only other film, 1985's Joey. It was a fun coming-of-age film with a great soundtrack, probably a music rights nightmare, hence only a VHS release. So I did have one question I wanted to ask you about Don't Go in the House. Did any of you think that Donnie's friend Bobby, who kept checking in on him and being overly friendly, was secretly attracted to Donnie? I was surprised when he asked Don to meet him and the girls at the disco because I really thought Bobby was gay. I remember thinking the same thing the first time I watched it, but I've never heard anyone else mention it. Lastly, I can't wait to hear your Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 episode. It's somehow even worse than part 2, and I can't believe the man who helmed Two-Lane Blacktop directed this steaming turd. I'm hoping you guys cover part 4 and 5 in the future, as I think both of these are far superior to parts 2 and 3. Anyway, hopefully Santa unloads his sack all over you this Christmas and that you all get something long and hard in your stockings. I'm referring to candy canes, of course, and that's from Rob Balducci. Well, going back to the Donnie thing in Don't Go in the House, did you mention that, Justin? No?
I don't think I did.
Okay.
I just felt like he was just trying to be a nice. It's kind of strange because he's kind of trying to be like this kind of really nice, caring guy, but then he's going, "Hey, let's go and cheat on my wife," which is a kind of strange sort of thing for a character. I kind of guess it seems to be a little bit all over the place. But I think he was just meant to be the kind of the kindly foil to the other character, but. I didn't get that. I didn't take away, especially when he was like, we're going to get ourselves a couple of chicks and go out to a disco kind of thing. I kind of thought that it kind of felt if there was any kind of homoeroticism implied, I think that kind of fell by the wayside by that point. What about you guys?
Well, I thought it was just basically like you. I just thought it was contrast to the Donnie character. He's kind of closed off and crazy, and this guy's just kind of a free spirit. I didn't really pick up on any subtext there, but it is interesting. I'd have to go back and look and see.
It does make sense because the Donnie character is quite unlikable. He'd be, to a degree, I suppose. He's not unlikable, but he's a bit strange. So you'd wondering why somebody would be so insistent on engaging him and bringing him out for a night out on the town with his girlfriends. I mean, the chances of him setting some of their hair on fire is quite high, so I wouldn't be inviting him to a nightclub.
I think it's meant to show Donnie out in the kind of real world, this kind of force, this kind of person out in the real world, and I don't know if it really necessarily translates all that well. But I will go back and look and see if it looks kind of strange in a way.
Has anyone seen Joseph Ellison's other film, Joey, in 1985? I can't say I have.
I don't think I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Well, I have heard of it, but I've not seen it. It's not a horror movie, is it?
Well, he says it's a fun coming-of-age movie with a great soundtrack.
Yeah, he obviously didn't make much of a career, unfortunately. Because I think we said Don't Go in the House is a fine movie, isn't it? But from what I've read, the director wasn't really into horror movies. He was kind of like he was a foot in the door for him, and I think he probably Joey was probably more to his tastes. But he still left us with a fun movie. So
yeah, so this I'm just looking at the soundtrack. There's bands like the Ramones, ELO, Screaming Jay Hawkins. So maybe that's why there's legal reasons for it. But in terms of the cast, I don't see any recognizable names in there. Somebody called Ellen Hamill. I wonder if she's related to Mark. It doesn't say. In terms of Silent Night, Deadly Night sequels, part 4 and 5, as we remember, are not slasher movies. So if we are to cover them, it'll be on Patreon, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, we still got there's still like a fair few slasher movies. There's the Silent Night, isn't there, from 10 years ago, the Killer Santa movie. And also, I think Silent Night, Deadly Night is due for a remake, isn't it, at some point? I think there's talk about the remake coming out relatively soon, possibly for next year. So who knows?
I thought that Silent Night from 10 years ago was a remake of kind.
My memory of it is that it's actually decent. It may not be great, but it seemed to be decent. And there's also
my memory as well.
There's also the one from 2014 called "And All Through the House," which was also rather decent. So there are a couple.
Yeah, exactly. So well, we shall see. It was a long way off anyway. Christmas. We've just getting over Christmas now, so we'll see where we are in 11 months' time, I guess. But is there anything left to say? I'm trying to think if there's any other news. I don't think there is.
Well, what are we covering next time, Justin?
Well, I'd say we were if we were able to catch Scream 5 on streaming, then we would have tried to cover that. But as it's only going to be in the cinemas, and I'm not sure if it's going to come to the cinema here. They don't always get horror movies, so I'm going to go completely back in time, back to 1980 again. And
Xanadu.
No, well, it's kind of like Xanadu. It has an Australian connection because it's Nightmares, aka Stage Fright, which is the theatre-based slasher, the Australian theatre-based slasher. So so that came out relatively recently. Well, within the last 3 or 4 years on Blu-ray, I think. So I think I have it upstairs somewhere. I have to double check. So we're going down under once again for a slasher from the golden age.
It'll also be our 11th birthday.
Well, there you go.
Maybe, just maybe, I'll have to prepare another quiz.
They're very popular.
Especially when I win them.
Well, this will be Justin's chance to put you in your place, Eric.
Exactly.
You talk better than you quiz.
Eh?
You talk better than you quiz.
Eh?
Hey?
Hey? So, anyway, what were you playing out with? Joseph, I think you said in lieu of Nathan's choice, you said you had something that would be fitting for Scream 4.
Well, it's not necessarily fitting for Scream 4, but it is fitting for Nathan since he couldn't be here. I had a look around at songs that came out in 2011, and I remember Nathan telling me that he loved this song and that he loved this group, and I was aghast because I hate this song and I hate this group. It's oh boy, it's Moves Like Jagger by Maroon 5.
Oh.
That's for Nathan.
For Nathan.
Yes.
We'll take one for the team for Nathan. So, well, thank you for listening to the Hysteria Continues. And as I said before, I hope 2022 is kind to you all. Plenty more to come from us, so stay tuned. And say goodbye to the good people.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I've got the move like Jagger. I've got the move.